In the red no longer, Joe Gibbs Racing wins their appeal. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. One of the main goals of the next-gen car, or Generation 7 car, was to lower the costs for the race teams in the long run. The next-gen would accomplish this by being a spec car, meaning the teams would no longer have to research and develop their own parts and pieces. Instead, vendors would deliver the same parts and pieces to every single race team, who would then simply have to assemble the cars. But in order to ensure this would cut costs and keep the playing field even, NASCAR has had to officiate the next-gen car very closely. Any team that's been caught modifying these spec parts that are supposed to be the same across the board have had the book thrown at them. We've seen 120-point penalties handed out. Teams fined upwards of $250,000. NASCAR has to take this extremely seriously. Post Daytona 500, NASCAR found an issue with Chase Briscoe's spoiler, and as a result, hit the number 19 team with a massive L2 penalty for modifying a next-gen part. The team was docked 100 driver, 100 owner points, plus 10 playoff points. They were fined $100,000, and crew chief James Small was to be suspended for 4 races. But the team decided to appeal, and Joe Gibbs Racing president Dave Alpern went on SiriusXM NASCAR radio to defend his team and suggest there was an issue with the spec part itself.
We screwed the spoiler on. It passed inspection, it raced legally, and it passed inspection afterwards. When they took it off, some of the screw holes were offset, again, because when you go to install it, they don't line up perfectly. We screwed something on and it met the perfect template. Just some of the screw holes were offset because the screws didn't line up perfectly.
Joe Gibbs Racing appealed, and today, the National Motorsports Appeals Panel rescinded the entire penalty. They wrote in a statement, quote, "The panel believes that the elongation of some of the holes on the number 19 Cup car spoiler base is caused by the process of attaching that specific spoiler base to the rear deck and not modification of the single source part." In other words, natural wear and tear. Joe Gibbs Racing wins the appeal. They made the better argument. Wow. That is a 100-point swing for Chase Briscoe and company. Briscoe gets all 100 points, driver and owner points back, 10 playoff points back, no suspension now for crew chief James Small. Chase Briscoe goes from last in points. He had negative 28 points this morning. Now he has, do the math, 72 points on the season. That moves him up to, I believe, a tie for 14th in the regular season standings. What a swing! This is also a historic occasion because I believe this is the first time a Cup Series team has successfully won an appeal after being penalized for illegally modifying a next-gen part. Every other illegal modification penalty up to this point has either not been appealed or has been appealed and the team was still found guilty. Even Hendrick Motorsports, that whole Phoenix deal with the louvers, the appeals panel said they broke the rules. They just gave them all their points back for some reason. NASCAR wrote that out of the rules books pretty quickly. I do wonder what NASCAR's reaction will be to this one. Did they just get it wrong? Did they see something suspicious, go through the appeal process, and the appeal panel got it right? Or will NASCAR feel like Joe Gibbs Racing skirted the rules? Will NASCAR try to close any loophole in the rulebook going forward? It will be interesting to see how they react to this. They may do nothing. They may say, hey, glad the appeals panel did what it's supposed to do, got it right. Or maybe we'll see an updated rulebook this time next week. Could go either way. Chase Briscoe just tweeted, "Biggest points day of my career. We're back." In all seriousness, thank you to NASCAR for giving us the option to show our evidence, and huge thank you to everyone at JGR who put in countless hours to put everything together. Yeah, this is a big deal for Chase Briscoe and team. I still believe the goal for Briscoe and James Small this year should be to win a race. 19 car didn't win last year. Chase Briscoe was able to win at Darlington in the Southern 500. James Small, is hungry to get back to victory lane, to get back to championship contention. The only way they win a championship this year is by winning races. And winning races get you in the playoffs, 100-point penalty or not. So while it is nice to have those 100 points back and now be once again in the mix in terms of regular season standings, and again, there are playoff points that pay out if you get a top 10 regular season result, the goal ultimately is still to win races. But yeah, this is a little less pressure off their back, or that demoralizing feeling I'm sure they felt 2 weeks ago when this penalty was first handed down now is lifted. As crushing as that may have felt 2 weeks ago, imagine the release that James Small and Chase Briscoe must be feeling today. They're going to Phoenix this weekend, which has been a good track for Joe Gibbs Racing in recent years. Last year in this spring race, Toyota led 298 out of 312 laps. Toyota dominated Phoenix in the spring, and Chase Briscoe, go back a few years when he was with Stewart-Haas 2022, he won this race. So I don't know if y'all believe in momentum, but the vibes within the 19 team got to be pretty good today, leading into a race at one of their best tracks. The goal for Chase Briscoe and James Small still to win races. The 100 points being restored is nice for sure, but there's still pressure on these guys to prove the doubters wrong. And I think the only way Briscoe and Small do that this year is by getting to victory lane. I think running 12th and being top 15 in points isn't going to silence the critics. You got to win, and that was the goal with or without the 100-point penalty. Still, if you're a Chase Briscoe, if you're a Chase Briscoe fan, a JGR fan, this day, this ruling is worth celebrating. Think about if they'd lost this ruling, James Small wouldn't have been at Phoenix this weekend. Maybe an opportunity to win would have disappeared. Now you get your crew chief for a race that is very winnable if you drive a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. Good opportunity this Sunday for Chase Briscoe to get in the win column. You know what my biggest takeaway is from all of this? I'm just glad that we no longer have to question the legitimacy of Chase Briscoe's Daytona 500 pole run, right? I mean, it was random. We haven't seen that kind of qualifying speed from Toyota at any drafting track in recent seasons. It was sus. It was suspicious for sure. I'm sure that's part of why NASCAR looked long and hard at the spoiler base at the R&D Center, but it now sounds like we don't have to question its legitimacy. So that's great. Yeah, congratulations. Now, I know it's 3 weeks removed, 4 weeks removed, but congratulations again to Joe Gibbs Racing for winning the pole for the Daytona 500. Nobody saw that coming. Absolutely no one. Yeah, this is so interesting. I'm happy for Briscoe, happy for Briscoe fans. I just wonder how NASCAR is going to react. I remember other teams, go back to 2022, have made the argument that the parts they were given did not fit. Like, I mean, Hendrick Motorsports with the louvers, their whole argument was that, hey, these spec parts y'all gave us didn't fit. Like, we had to adjust them to get them to fit on the actual car. I think Brad Keselowski, go back to 2022, RFK, made a similar argument about one of the panels. I remember there wasn't a penalty for this, I don't think, but early 2022, there was an issue with the wheel, the openings on the hub, on the next gen wheels. Some teams were kind of filing or drilling them open. NASCAR said, hey, quit doing that. There have been questions about, hey, what if this part I received doesn't fit? In the past, NASCAR seems to have made it clear, if it doesn't fit, bring it to us, point it out. Don't put it on the car. I don't know what the case is here with Joe Gibbs Racing. Maybe it wasn't an issue with the parts fitting. It was just, those holes sort of wearing out over time. Is that an issue with the part that NASCAR is going to want resolved, or is that simply a gray area that the teams are able to play around in? I know with this next-gen car, again, spec car, supposed to be an even playing field, NASCAR wants to eliminate as many gray areas as they possibly can. So that's why I'm wondering aloud now. I'm not technical enough to know for sure, but I'm wondering aloud, could we see a modification to the rule book by next week in relation to this spoiler penalty that's now obviously been rescinded, overturned by the appeal panel? That's what's interesting to me. I'm happy for Briscoe, happy for Briscoe fans, but is NASCAR happy with the result today? Probably not, but will they do anything about it? That's the real question. Anyway, it's been a really busy day. This morning, NASCAR announced they are countersuing 2311 in front row. I'm still working on that video. Earlier, I talked about Austin Cindric being handed a 50-point penalty for right-rearing Ty Dillon. If you want to hear my reaction to that, check out my channel. Tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern, I'll be streaming live with the Iceberg, Danny B. We'll talk about all the news today, plus what happened at COTA, looking ahead to Phoenix. It's a busy, busy day. I appreciate y'all sticking with me. Keep an eye on your subscription feeds. More to come by the end of the day, I promise. Want to say a quick thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support the show. Appreciate you all watching. Subscribe if you're new to the show. We talk NASCAR every single day. I will catch up with y'all again a little later. Take care, everyone.